And to help open up our conference, we are honored to be joined by one of our own, Rosie Hidalgo, longtime advocate and policy guru. We are very fortunate to have Rosie as a special assistant to the president and senior advisor on gender-based violence. Welcome, Rosie.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thanks so much for the kind introduction, and to all of you for this opportunity to gather with you, even if virtual. I'm excited you're going to be in DC next year and look forward to hopefully gathering in person then in DC. As you know, the commitment of this administration to address gender-based violence runs deep, and it comes from the leadership of President Biden and Vice President Harris and their long-standing commitment to these issues. And as President Biden stated in the Sexual Assault Awareness Month proclamation that was issued this past April, quote, "It is a responsibility of each of us to stand up and to speak out against sexual assault, not only to improve the laws and services available to survivors, but also to change the culture and the attitudes that allow sexual assault to proliferate." And also, as stated in the proclamation, this administration recognizes that sexual assault was already a public health crisis, even before the pandemic, and yet truly acknowledges how it's been exacerbated during the pandemic at the intersection with the health crisis, the economic crisis, and the systemic barriers that we're all much more aware of now, that we've known for a long time, but now clearly seeing how these systemic barriers get in the way of access to health and safety and well-being, particularly for those from marginalized communities. And so I really want to commend you all for your tremendous commitment and dedication on the front lines, helping survivors every day, and despite these challenges, continuing with hope and with commitment and with vision to keep saying, how do we advance this critical work to prevent and end sexual assault? How do we work towards justice, healing, well-being survivors, and well-being for communities? And so on that front and at that intersection, really want to just call out also the conference organizers, all of you involved as participants and as presenters, to gather and really talk about this intersectional lens as well, recognizing that different forms of oppression are tied into the oppression of gender-based violence. And so then the need to work together in solidarity to address these issues in a more holistic and comprehensive manner. And so I'm excited to just give you a little brief background on the White House Gender Policy Council, because it is with that lens that President Biden signed an executive order on March 8th, International Women's Day, calling for the creation of the first ever White House Gender Policy Council. And part of the goal is to develop a national strategy to advance gender equity and gender equality in its full, robust sort of definition of what that means. And so we're seeking to bring a whole of government approach to this across all policy issues. And so the executive order calls for the development of this national strategy on gender equity and gender equality within 200 days of the signing of the executive order, which at the time looked like a lot of time. Now we have it upon us. By the end of September 24th, we'll be presenting a preliminary plan to the president based on a lot of input across all federal agencies and components, input from external stakeholders. And really, as we're developing this strategy, the executive order calls also for doing so at the intersection with the executive orders on racial equity, the orders also on advancing equality for individuals from LGBTQ communities, and across different issue areas that impact and disproportionately impact different communities. So it's exciting that as a whole of government, we are seeking to bring this intersectional lens to our work and recognizing that that is the only way we're going to advance these goals. And also the executive order calls in its implementation of the strategy for the first ever national action plan on gender-based violence, on preventing and improving the response to gender-based violence. About 50 countries around the world have developed national action plans. And here in the US, as you know, we have significant pieces of legislation, whether that's the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, or the Victims of Crime Act, VOCA, or other significant pieces of legislation. But what we're seeking to do is much more holistically, again, pull together a plan, focus on prevention, focus on a holistic response. And so we really invite all the input that will be coming from you all and others, stakeholders on the front lines, I look forward to hearing the recommendations that are going to emerge from this conference and ways that we were talking to David and others there and Sandra on some ongoing ways to get the input of the field in developing this national action plan. I'm excited to say too that with humility and gratitude, we've been engaging with our partners in the Global South. We had a wonderful exchange with NGO leaders and government leaders in South Africa, in Argentina, also in other countries like Australia, to learn about their efforts in developing national strategies on gender equity and national action plans on GBV. So we'll continue to lift this up as our international commitment as well. And at the recent Gender Equality Forum that was held in Paris, Vice President Harris spoke there and lifted up our nation's commitment to developing this national action plan on gender-based violence and also updating our global strategy on GBV and really coming together at the intersection of both of those to lift up a human rights framework. So again, I hope you have a wonderful next 3 days of this conference. I look forward to hearing more about it and look forward to continued opportunities for collaboration. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rosie.